Aww, yeah. Welcome back to another episode of Drafts with Jordan and Josh. I am one of your hosts, Mr. Jordan Blocker. With me, as always, Mr. Josh Liskowitz. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing awesome. How are you doing, Jordan?
I'm doing great, man. We're starting to get into some actual conference games here. We got 2 weeks now of the rookies done, man. It's an exciting time, right?
Yeah, this is the time, and that's kind of what I wrote about in this week's matchups for college. Is that we're getting into conference season, which means better matchups, which means familiar matchups.
Right.
So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but got some other stuff I want to talk to you about, man. How about we start off with some NFL? How about we talk about some rookies?
That sounds great, man. I know our Billy Moy has been keeping track of that. If you go to ProFootballFocus.com, you can see Billy has the race for the Rookie of the Year. And right now there's a fantastic picture of Kareem Hunt on there, and I feel like I'm racing with Kareem. But Josh, got to tell you, Kareem Hunt would beat me in a foot race.
He would. He's not the fleetest of foot in terms of this class of running backs, but at the same time, yeah, he would still whoop you.
Yeah, he's fleeter than I. Okay, so your pick for Rookie of the Year is again leading our Rookie of the Year race. So congrats, Josh. Kareem Hunt, halfback, Kansas City Chiefs. Again, PFF grade at 87.1. He is tearing it up, Josh. I know it's only been 2 games, but man, I mean, he's averaged 4.37 yards per carry after contact, Josh. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it actually got better this week because it was at 4.0, and that led the NFL week 1, and he actually improved upon that. So that's been obviously impressive. Tied for number 1 with 10 forced missed tackles on his run carries. 14 total. That leads the NFL so far. That second touchdown he had, I don't know if you got a chance to see that, Jordan, but he plowed through about 6,000 or 7,000 guys at the 2-yard line and somehow stretched out to put it home. And he's doing absolutely everything that's asked of him at a very, very high level right now. And as long as he's doing that, man, Chiefs are going to be competing all year long. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I cannot wait for those games against the Raiders, because really, as a whole, there are not 2 teams that look better than the Raiders and Chiefs right now, and a large part of the Chiefs looking so good has been Kareem Hunt.
I mean, it literally looks like we just cut Kareem Hunt out of Toledo and just put him in the Chiefs, and it's just the same guy. It's like he didn't lose anything. It's ridiculous. It's like he's played 2 MAC games so far this year.
Yep, he's playing BYU both weeks apparently.
All right, let's move on to number 2, holding strong there this week as well as Tre'Davious White, the corner for the Bills. He had a 83.7 PFF grade. His 5.1 run stop percentage ranks 7th among all quarterbacks. Josh Tre'Davious White is still looking good.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one, and it leads into our number 3 guy at this point as well. Spoiler. Because this was, but these were guys that we talked about as a rather interesting perspective on draft day when they were taken. Buffalo, everybody knew they needed a corner. Instead of taking Marshawn Lattimore where they were at, they instead decided to trade back. I think that was the Houston trade, so Houston can go get Deshaun Watson, if I remember correctly, right?
No, that was the KC trade, right?
That was the KC trade, okay.
Yeah, for Mahomes.
So they traded with KC, so Casey could come up and get Mahomes. And so they moved back into the 20s. Still got Tre'Davious White, who was PFF's number 2 corner in the you know what? I shouldn't say PFF's number 2. I think we were all split out. He was my number 2. I know that. To Lattimore, who, of course, went a couple picks later to the Saints. And White's been awesome so far, and he shows a little bit why I liked him so much, is his versatility. We saw at Senior Bowl, he could play safety, he could play slot, he could play corner. And typically, if you're playing slot or safety, that means you're going to be good against the run as well, or at least you need to be. And he's been playing outside, I believe, for the most part for the Bills, but he's been excellent against the run, obviously, as you highlighted with his run stop percentage so far. So I'm very excited to see him having an all-around strong rookie season, and a little bit of light in what's going to be a dark tunnel this year for Buffalo Bills fans, let's be honest.
Woo! Yeah, and every time that I think about like corners and run stopping, I ever think about. Do you ever watch the old Alex Gibbs outside zone run tutorials? They're like on YouTube. It's hilarious. It's like lineman porn. But anyways, there's like this thing. He's basically saying that they're trying to run at the corners because they're just such lousy tacklers. You know, they're like, yeah. So he basically, I can't use his language, but his basically was saying that like. Corners can't tackle in the NFL, so so when you see a guy again, even at the college level, you don't expect them to do it very well, but at the NFL level, not that many guys still do it very well. So, very impressive from the young Tre'Davious White there. Now, Josh, moving on, we have not one, not two, but three new entries in Billy's top 5 list here, Josh. So so we got some serious movement going on. So you kind of teased, I think is what we call it in the profession, that Marshawn Lattimore, a corner from the Saints, is number 3 now. Josh, he had a PFF grade of 82.4 right now. The elite stat to showcase what he's done so far, he's made 9 tackles without missing a tackle through 2 weeks. That's the 8th best rate among all quarterbacks. Again, talking about tackling cornerbacks, but again, Lattimore, a guy we were really high on, and he's playing pretty good so far.
Yeah, again, kind of the light at the end of that very, very dark tunnel for the start the Saints have had. Boy, I really expected more in general out of this defense, and it just hasn't happened so far. They're still having busts all over the place in that secondary, and they've just been completely carved up the first 2 weeks, but none of it's really been the fault of Lattimore. He's been on point to an extent. I don't think that he's been terribly tested in coverage, but they haven't had teams haven't been able to test him because he's the one playing competently right now. So Saints fans can at least be excited about what he's brought. Brady had a 72.9 passer rating when targeting Lattimore, which for Brady, that's not great, especially considering he had a 147.8 rating when targeting anyone else in New Orleans secondary. So that kind of tells you what he's doing versus everyone else. I think that makes him all the more impressive, just because it'd be so easy for him, and maybe this will happen as the year drags on if they continue to have issues, but it would be so easy for him to kind of fall in line with everyone else around him or have similar issues, certainly if communication is a problem, which it appears to be. So I guess that's something to watch out going forward, but at least he's holding up his end of the bargain thus far.
You know what's really interesting is, generally we say that the further away you are from the ball, the longer it takes to adjust to the NFL game. And so for us to have 2 corners on that list, that's really impressive, because I cannot even imagine how difficult it would be to come in and play corner as a rookie in the NFL. Good night.
And I mentioned last week Darius Slay of Detroit, who's been a stud for them since his second season. He barely played his rookie year, and a large part of that, going back to Tre'Davious White at number 2, was because Slay could not play the run his first year. But there's so many things the further you are back, and the communication has to work in that secondary for things to go right. We saw it week 1 with the Patriots. They had 2 All-Pro guys in that secondary that didn't communicate properly and gave up a bust for a touchdown against Kansas City. It's so easy to just lose that. And when you're a rookie, it's even harder, obviously. So, yeah, I'm with you 100%. Very encouraging to see them doing well. But let's be honest, we loved this rookie class. So, honestly, it's not too terrible surprising to see a couple of them excelling, even if, obviously it's our top, or at least my top 2 guys.
All right, now moving a little bit closer to the ball, as to be expected with the rookies. Number 4, again, new entry here. We have Dietrich Wise, the edge from the New England Patriots, a PFF grade of 84.1. Josh, I remember the first time I saw him, Steve told me to watch him. Steve Palazzolo said, hey, take a look at this guy at Arkansas. And he, in that uniform and with the length of his arms, it just looked like an octopus. He was just I was like, what is even happening? This guy looks like a cartoon character out there. He is so freaky long. And that length, it looks like it's really helping to translate his game. Josh, he's really been pretty good so far these first two games. Right now he's ranked 5th among edge defenders with a 16.9 pass rush productivity rating. Josh,
86.5 overall grade against the Saints. 5 total pressures, 3 hits and a sack. So it's not just like late hurries not really affecting the play. I mean, he did some major damage on the Saints, and that was on just 26 pass rushing snaps. So that's almost 1 of every 5. He's hitting home and getting to the quarterback. So obviously, very impressive debut for him through 2 weeks so far. And quite honestly, I think we're going to see more from him. I liked him quite a bit. Not the hyper athlete profile. He's not the 4'4", gonna break your hip just watching him bend because he's so flexible. But at the same time, like you said, his power, his length, that's really to his advantage, and New England knows how to use that.
His go-go gadget arms.
Yeah.
It's impressive. Yeah, so hopefully, we'll see more of that, and he could be a guy that could again make a bigger impact as the season progresses towards the playoffs, because we know he's going to be in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. All right, moving on, Josh. You're a number 5 guy, again, a new entry, and an LSU linebacker, Kendall Beckwith for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. PFF grade of 87.0. Beckwith right now ranks 17th among linebackers with an average of 12 coverage snaps per reception allowed per PFF Elite stats. Again, Josh, we'd spoken about the LSU linebackers for some reason just performing well as rookies. Here we go again.
Yeah, guys that we don't like. And Beckwith was a guy that I in particular graded for us and didn't really like him, except on third down. Third and short, he was the man. He was aggressive, he was physical, he would come forward, he would blow people up. And Tampa Bay's asking him to do that. I've gotten a chance to watch both their games a little bit. And Tampa has done a good job of, I think, putting him in positions to succeed in terms of letting him attack the line of scrimmage, whether it be pass rush or against the run, just let him go thump. I think he can do that well. Although he did also do pretty well in the passing game against Chicago. Mike Glennon, Chicago's awesome quarterback, had a 56.3 passer rating when targeting Beckwith last week. So obviously that's Glennon. So we'll see how that translates the rest of the season. But obviously a good start for Beckwith as well, and just another in the long line of those LSU linebackers that we never seem to like very much, that seem to make at least some level of immediate impact in the NFL. And not on our list, I should mention here. He's graded okay, to be honest, but certainly they think he's made an impact to the point where they traded away a former first-round pick of theirs. The Saints just traded Stephon Anthony, and they really seem to like Alex Anzalone. Not a LSU linebacker, but a Florida linebacker that didn't like too much. So that SEC linebacker thing where we don't like those guys have been panning out. So we got to figure that out.
Yeah, Anzalone, I think his deal was off. It was just an availability issue more so than anything else.
That is very, very true.
So we'll see how he holds up to the rigors of a 16-game NFL season. All right, yes. Moving on just briefly through the rest of Billy's top 10 here. We have Chris Carson for the Seahawks at number 6. We have Dalvin Tomlinson, defensive interior lineman for the New York Giants at number 7. We have T.J. Watt, the edge from Pittsburgh Steelers at number 8. We have Dalvin Cook, the halfback for the Minnesota Vikings at number 9. And then rounding out the top 10 is Garrett Bowles, the tackle for the Broncos.
Bowles did get hurt, so I would imagine you're going to see other guys jump in next week.
Yeah, imagine he'll be dropping off there. One guy I imagine, Josh, that will be rising up still is Cooper Kupp with the Rams, because Goff continues to find a lot of targets for him. So I think Kupp will be moving up on this list. Anybody else on here that really stands out to you?
Yeah, a couple guys. Larry Ogunjobi from Cleveland. I didn't get a chance to watch him last week, but I loved him week 1, so I'm glad to see that he's kind of on our watch list. I expect he'll continue to go up. Zach Cunningham, that was my guy, and he's playing well for Houston so far. Has another big game this week, so we'll see how he does against the Patriots. And Tariq Cohen, I just think volume-wise, that script sets up perfectly for him. Their Bears are going to be behind a lot, and they're going to be throwing the ball. And for those quarterbacks, regardless of who it is, the easiest throw is going to be to Tariq Cohen leaking out of the backfield. So he's going to get his volume plays, and I think he's going to continue to be on that board and climb up a bit. And yes, Jordan, that should be taken as my once-a-week fantasy slant.
Ooh.
Yes. So especially daily, you want to get Tariq Cohen, and you might even want to get him for playdraft.com. We've talked about playdraft.com for the last good month now, Jordan, and boy, it's one of those things where, you know, if you're in your redraft league, you think you drafted a great team, you drafted first overall, and you drafted David Johnson, and week 1 he's gone. So week 2, you get your second round pick, Jordy Nelson. Boom, he's gone. So it's just one of those things where your year's destroyed and your life is ruined. Well, that's not the case this year, because all you do is you go to playdraft.com, or you download the app on your iPhone, on your Android. Just go to your app store, download Draft, and it works just like the daily fantasy leagues, but it's year long, and you don't have to pay attention to it the rest of the year. So you draft your team, that's your team for the whole year. It's a best ball format. So whoever you draft, whoever scores best each week, that's your lineup for the week. You don't need to worry about setting your lineup. You don't need to worry about adjusting for injuries, because that's the team you have. And you can forget about it once you're drafted, and you can go back to it. And you're playing for real money too. So by the end of the season, you have a nice little something there by the end, and figure out how well you did. So go to playdraft.com, get in on those leagues. They're a lot of fun. I have 7,000 or 8,000 of them myself, and having a great time with it.
Awesome. Well, you know, speaking of draft, let's move on to some draft prospects, Josh. And again, break out the Chinese food menus. It's the year of the quarterback, Josh.
It is.
We have to start off with the quarterbacks.
You know what, Jordan? For as much as it's the year of the quarterbacks, let's be honest, they've, for the most part, been pretty disappointing so far.
Yeah, I mean, they have, but it's early. It's early.
It is early.
Yeah. You know, and besides, it's the year of the quarterback. In a world where that was my trailer voice. I can't do the trailers for very long, Josh. It's not in my DNA. Anyways, year of the quarterback, we're going to start with Sam Darnold. You know, out of the 8 players that we've been highlighting each week, Sam Darnold, we'll read some stats off, some rankings. Those rankings will be out of those 8 players. So right now, Darnold's got an 87.1 overall grade, Josh, and he's ranking 3rd out of those guys. You know, and he's actually played some decent opponents compared to some of these other guys. But again, still not really the start we really wanted to see from Darnold. Is that right? Has this led to a part of your disappointment with the year of the quarterback, Josh?
Oh, there's no question about that. I don't want to harp on the timing and rhythm thing, because I talked about that way too much the previous 2 weeks, but maybe I need to put a little more credence in that with him. But it's also frustrating because he has really what might be our top rated wide receiver in all of college football through the first 3 weeks of the season, in Deontay Burnett. So it's not like, I had no idea that was coming, right? But so it's not like he hasn't had help. Like Luke Falk, we'll get to him in a minute. I mean, he's working in all brand new guys, and he did have a better week this past week. But still, you can excuse Falk's slower start just because he's working with all these new guys. But Darnold has the best receiver in the country right now, and he's still, in general, is not playing nearly what he was last year. So maybe it's one of those things where it's an adjustment because teams have some film on him now and they have some other things. I want to sit down and watch him. Maybe it does have something to do with delivery. Maybe teams are getting him quicker, and because of that elongated delivery that he still has, they're able to get more pressure on him. Maybe the defensive backs are keying on that. I don't know. I'm really interested to at some point in the next couple of weeks, really sit down and look at what he's done so far and see, is there an issue there, or is he just starting slow because there's a little rust at the beginning of the year?
Maybe we'll in a couple of weeks we'll assign midterm grades or something and do a special show.
That might be a good idea.
Year of the quarterback midterm grades. All right, moving on, Josh. We'll go on to the aforementioned Luke Falk from Washington State. And I really think that your theory is pretty sound about him and about the struggles, because he did break in some new players, and it's not to say they're not talented, but again, when you lose a River Craycraft, who's an NFL caliber wide receiver, I think he's got to try out with the Patriots or something, and then you get you lose Gabe Marks, the all-time Pac-12 leading receiver, and so now you got to go with, Tavares Martin Jr. had a great week this past week, made our national team of the week. So he does have some talent there, but you're right, Josh, this is a rhythm timing offense, and it takes, time with those receivers to figure everything out. Right now, his overall grade is 80.9, and that ranks 6th out of these 8 guys we're going to talk about. His adjusted completion percentage of 80.7 ranks 2nd. So he had a bit of a bounce-back week last week, Josh. He hung 6 touchdowns up, but again, a little bit slower start, but looks like maybe he's starting to heat up now.
Yeah, a couple of things that are about him statistically that are standing out, and certainly on the positive end. You look at his QB rating against the blitz, 123.8. That's second best in this group. That's certainly very good, and that kind of speaks to what we talked about him over the summer, his ability to diagnose defensive intentions pre and post snap and make adjustments with that. Again, wide receivers are going to have to be able to do that with him to an extent and get on the same page as him, and I think that'll continue to progress as the year goes along. But that's certainly encouraging, as is the adjusted completion percentage of 80.7%. That's second best as well. I would imagine some of that probably has a little bit to do with depth of target, just because he's not really testing the intermediate and long throws as much as some of the other guys are. But in the same respect, that's still a very good number. Again, that's second best in this group, and I think we'll continue to see him improve.
All right, moving on to next player is Lamar Jackson from Louisville. He currently has the 86.5 overall grade, which ranks 4th out of these 8 players that we're discussing. His stat that's really sticking out right now is his passer rating versus pressure, which is 103.3, which ranks 3rd out of these 8 players. But Josh, you take a little bit of a step back this past week against Clemson, which got a really talented defense.
Yeah, honestly, that wasn't a surprise to me at all. I thought, especially considering the way Lamar Jackson's played the first 2 weeks. Now, obviously, his numbers were through the roof, but I still thought that there were some struggles in context. And you look at the way last year ended, some similar things. I think anytime Louisville goes against a strong defensive front, they're going to have major struggles, because as long as you contain Lamar Jackson, you're forcing him to prove that he can pass to different parts of the field, that he can make quicker decisions, that he can go through progressions, and I still don't think even those first 2 weeks that he showed he was capable of that. And obviously, as you said, he took a step back. One of the more interesting stats from that game this week, he was only pressured on 15 of 52 dropbacks, which certainly for college isn't awful. 7 of those resulted in a sack. So it's you think about him as this elusive guy, but sometimes those running quarterbacks, they hang in the pocket too long, or they just extend plays too long, and they get themselves into trouble, and that's certainly happened with Lamar Jackson this past weekend.
All right, we will move on to the guy who has basically been, killing the year of the quarterback thus far, and that's Baker Mayfield from Oklahoma. And it's actually pretty annoying, because anytime he makes a big play, I basically get like a big play alert from Steve and 100 other analysts who love Baker Mayfield. Did you see what Baker did? Did you see what Baker did? And it's oh man, I'm working over here, people. Anyways, there's a large contingent that really likes Baker Mayfield here at PFF. But Josh, when you look at these stats that we're keeping track of, and of these 8, it's hard to deny what he's doing right now. I mean, his overall grade is 91.3, is 1st out of this 8. His adjusted completion percentage of 85.2 is 1st out of this 8. And then he also leads against the blitz in short accuracy and intermediate accuracy, Josh, and big time throw percentage and turnover worthy throw percentage. Josh, he's crushing it right now.
Yeah, he is. There's no other way around it. And obviously, it's not like they've played 3 complete cream puffs. They've only played 2 complete cream puffs. One of those teams he lit up was Ohio State in the middle there in the horseshoe again. So not to beat that horse dead, but you can't help but be impressed what he's accomplished. how he translates to the next level, that's going to be a long discussion we're going to have. We're going to continue to have. And I think it's at least worth discussing. You and I, obviously, we had serious questions about him, more so than I think some of our other guys. But I think he's worth that discussion, though, just because he's so far and above, better than everyone else in basically every statistical category, not just last year, but certainly this year so far, that at some point we got to figure out where's the marriage of the two. And he's kind of that case study this year.
Two things. One, we'll have to go back and watch some more film of his play as warranted that. And then two, during that time that you were talking, I received at least 3 more messages about how awesome Baker Mayfield is from PFF analysts. So it's, again,
it's a work, guys. Seriously.
Seriously.
Yeah,
do
work
some work.
to do. So much work.
Do some work, guys. All right. Moving on to the next quarterback, with the terrible first name. That's Josh Rosen from UCLA. Right now he's got the overall grade of 85.2. That ranks 5th out of this group, Josh. Right now his stat that's sticking out of this group the most is his deep passing, his accuracy is 138.2, and that ranks 1st among this group, Josh. But he's had some good and some bad. He's got a nice target there now in Caleb Wilson at the tight end spot, but again, not. I'd like to see a little bit more.
Yeah, it's the decision making. It continues to be terrible, and I don't think it's a situation like where it was last year, where you just didn't have playmakers around him. You highlighted how good his tight end's been, and just in general, they've been able to do what they want to do on offense. But he continues to just make those 1 or 2 boneheaded decisions, and when you have a defense that's played quite poorly in 2 of the 3 matchups, and you make those couple of decisions, it doesn't necessarily matter if you put up 30, 40 points. You're going to cost him the game. And really, he did that this past week, and that crippled them against Memphis, what he did in the 4th quarter.
Yeah, it was bad, and he even admitted it. He said he tried to play hero ball, and I have to wonder if it's just like his first name.
That's just his DNA.
Maybe his first name has just led to a bad decision making. You know what I mean? Like maybe Josh.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time I've been called a hero, but yeah.
But anyways, yeah. So Rosen again having some issues with the decision making and trying to make too many big plays himself, and hurting his team more than helping it. So again, something we'd like to see cleaned up. Moving forward. All right, Josh, the next player that we're going to talk about is Mason Rudolph from Oklahoma State. He has a 90.9 overall grade right now, which ranks 2nd among this group. His passer rating versus pressure is what's really standing out right now, Josh, and that's 144.5, which ranks 1st among this group of 8. What are you seeing from Mason Rudolph?
Yeah, he's kind of been the forgotten guy so far, even though he's clearly been number 2, at least statistically. He's been impressive in just about every facet. Now, they've definitely had the cupcakes so far, and I'm sorry, but you got to put Pitt in there. Certainly defensively, Pitt has been awful on defense the last couple of years, even with a coach that was supposed to be a big-time defensive guy coming from Michigan State. But he's been awesome. Some of the things we liked about him, 16.8 yards per attempt. 2 of his touchdowns were all pressures this past week. So, while he didn't have as gaudy of numbers for him as normal, he only was 9 of 15 passing, even though they're for 346 yards. I think he's going to continue to be able to do this, certainly against poor level competition, but he's got some big games coming up. So let's see how he does when the competition kind of stacks up to them a little better than what they have so far.
Speaking of competition, we're going to move on to Josh Allen from Wyoming, who has really had struggles this year. Someone that we had highlighted before the season as, we had some concerns. But right now, Josh, though, he's played 2 games against the Power 5 competition and really had a tough time. Now, his overall grade is 48.6. which is bad, and that's also by far the worst grade out of the 8 players that we are tracking here. Out of the 10 statistical categories that we're tracking here, Josh, he basically ranks dead last in 8 out of the 10. He again had his game against Oregon was supposed to be a pretty big game for him. I think there was scouts from about half the NFL teams were there, and it was a really rough showing, Josh. There was, just terrible accuracy. You couldn't convert a third down, so the offense just stalled. It was not pretty. What are you seeing from Josh Allen?
Well, let's tell the whole story there. This was your game to grade, and you were so frustrated that I had to tag in and grade him in the second half of that game. Let's be honest. That's exactly what happened. So the reality is we both got to see him because of it. And, it's to the point now where, we talked about what we saw from him last year. We really didn't like his play last year, to be honest. We understood the upside because of the arm and the size and all that, but he hasn't shown any progressive in terms of mentally. His decision making is still terrible. His accuracy it's on par with it's on par with some well over par quarterbacks from recent years. We'll put it that way. And at this point, I think we're beating a dead horse with him. His play is likely to improve somewhat as he heads into conference season and isn't playing the Iowas and Oregons of the world. But in the same respect, he's not in the class of these guys worth being in that discussion, in my opinion. I just don't see the value in continuing to lump him in with these guys.
Yeah, it's he really, from his performance this far, it's something that you and I have spoken about before. I think he should not go back to school. Should stay in school.
Yes.
But word around the campfire is that he's probably not going to stay in school, and that he'll probably be coming out.
That's very unfortunate.
Yeah. Which I would not recommend that he come out. I would recommend that he stay, try to power through this rough start, get experience, get more accurate, and come back another year and really try to improve upon it. If he tries to go into the NFL draft after this terrible showing against Power 5 competition, and no one's really going to pay that much attention to how much he destroys the Mountain West, let's be honest. It's not a good situation.
Well, and let's be honest, too. If you're struggling at this point and you look like you're at the bottom of the heap in the year of the quarterback, then why would you want to go pro in the year of the quarterback? I would want to go pro in the year after the year of the quarterback. So,
in the year after the year of the quarterback,
the sequel is always terrible.
I know. That's why I refuse in my brain to believe that there is a second or third Matrix movie or any other Pirates of the Caribbean other than the original one.
Yeah, exactly. That's why Star Wars got it right by calling the second one Empire Strikes Back.
Otherwise,
they didn't go Star Wars 2.
Yeah. All right, so the last quarterback we're going to discuss out of our 8 is a guy that we really liked, Mike White from Western Kentucky. Our biggest concern about him going into the season was that he was going to be going from such an offense that he had really thrived in the year before, and that coach left and moved on, and now he's going to be operating in a new system. So right now, Josh, he's not doing as well as we had hoped. His overall grade right now is 79.4, which ranks 7th out of this group of 8. It's still significantly better than Josh Allen. But right now, his highlight, his stat probably is adjusted completion percentage is 79.4%, and that's 3rd out of this 8. But he's not pushing the ball down the field like he was last year, Josh.
Yeah, that's got to be a product of the offensive scheme, right? Because I don't think he all of a sudden got bad at it. I think he's had something like maybe 17 attempts downfield or something like that. It's not a high percentage of his attempts like it was last year, and we talked about him having the highest adjusted completion percentage on downfield throws, pro or college, since Aaron Rodgers in 2012 last year. And they've just taken that out of his game, which I understand installing a new scheme, but when that's what your guy does well, I might hold on to that. It's kind of it's good for the offense when you can throw the ball deep, but again, it's one of those things where, like we talked about with the first 2 guys on the list, a new system, a lot of new guys there for sure. It's going to take time for him to adjust to a number of things. So, and that's good for scouts. Scouts don't just want to see him throw the deep ball every single play and tear it up just like he did last year. They want to see him have to go through a little bit of adversity, learn new schemes, new terminology, yada, yada, yada. And so let's see if he can improve upon that. Interesting game against Louisiana Tech this week. I did get a chance to watch Louisiana Tech early in the season, and I think they can certainly be had through the air. So we'll see if he gets that turned around starting this week.
There are other positions besides just quarterback, Josh, so we have to move on and discuss the other players who are sort of moving up draft boards, Josh, the risers, the draft board.
It's the year of the quarterback and the other players, some of them who are risers. That seems like a very, very grotesquely long hashtag.
Yes.
I don't think it works.
Hey. So the first player that we're going to discuss on our risers list, Josh, is the Uchenna Nwosu, the edge from USC. Really, really tearing it up off the edge right now. No sacks, but 15 pressures, Josh. 5 batted passes. That's really impressive.
Yeah, and I think it's worth pointing out that he was on our matchups to watch this past week, but unfortunately, who we pegged as his adversary, Connor Williams, one of the top players in the country, went down early in that game and did not return. I don't remember Williams' status going forward, but Nwosu, obviously he took advantage. He's been great so far this year. I mean, he's been all over the quarterback with those pressures and those 5 batted passes as well. I just, he's having that breakout season that we kind of expected. You talked about all summer. He wouldn't shut up about it. And to your credit, you might have had a point on him.
Yeah, well, again, like his streak of production this year has been really impressive. 0 sacks still, but hopefully that will come. But yeah, but they're entering the tough part of the schedule, so we'll see where we go. Next player who's rising, Josh, Will Hernandez from UTEP. Again, a guy we've really, really liked since last year. Again, when you and I were just spending some time together watching him over the summer, like he's one of my favorite players to watch, Josh. This guy just mauls people.
Yeah, you mentioned Lyman Porn earlier, talking about Gibbs and his videos. That's what Will Hernandez is. It's Lyman Porn. And actually, the first time I ever heard anyone use Lyman Porn was last week when we mentioned Will Hernandez. We talked about I call him the best small school FBS guard since Mike Iupati. And the first time I ever heard the phrase coined Lyman Porn, it was my wife watching me watch Iupati, and I was just going, oh my goodness, like for 3 hours on end, watching him on Halloween before he went out to a Halloween party. I don't remember who they were playing, but she's like, this is like Lyman Porn for you, and I was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Yeah. So my wife is responsible for Lyman Porn.
Did she leave you alone? She's like, give you some privacy so you could finish watching the video?
Yeah. She leaves me alone, believe me, when I'm watching football.
All right. The next player here, again, terrible first name in this prospect, cornerback Joshua Jackson from Iowa. Passer rating when targeted right now, 45.6. Josh, he's moving up the board.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out that he's done really well the last 2 weeks as well, not just week 1 when facing off against he who shall not be named anymore from Wyoming. So, I mean, that passer rating against him, basically, if you throw an incomplete pass, your passer rating for that play is 39.6. And Joshua Jackson's passer rating is 45.6. So he's almost at that point where you're basically throwing an incomplete pass when you throw it to him.
Which is, not good. When you said he who should not be named, I thought you were talking about Tim Tebow, and I'm like, this is not a baseball podcast, Josh. We will not discuss baseball. Moving on from baseball and he who shall not be named, one of the players who's really broken out this year right away was wide receiver Jaleel Scott from New Mexico State. Big target, Josh. This guy's 6 foot, like 6'5", 6'6" at range, like 215 pounds, like. he's really impressive from like a physical standpoint, just sort of watching him out-muscle guys and win at the catch point. You know, he came off, he had eight passes for 149 yards and 2 touchdowns against ASU week 1, and he's just been tearing it up, Josh.
Yeah, you talk about breaking out. He had 22 receptions all of last year, and that's his total so far through 3 weeks this year. So big start for him, and you gotta, not that Arizona State's a great opponent in terms of Power 5 goes, how Power 5 is, but at the same respect, you gotta think Jaleel Scott's going to continue to just tear it up now that he gets into his conference schedule, which certainly is going to have teams that are going to be able to, on a consistent basis, compete with teams like Arizona State.
Yeah, I jumped in on the second half of the analysis for on the New Mexico State Troy game, and then watched him catch a 2-point conversion in the back of the end zone. I mean, just his ball skills, like I said, his ability to win at the catch point. Like, you know, if you need one of those guys now, you know what I mean. You need that big guy, and he fits that role. I don't think he's going to be, you know, running any Deshaun Jackson 40 times at all, but you know, he's again just that big target. Really doing well, like you said, Josh. He should start to shine now that they get into conference play.
So let me get this straight. Saturday night, you are crying. You're in tears because you are forced to watch Josh Allen just make poor decision after poor decision, bad throw after bad throw. So I step in to help you out. Mm-hmm. Someone else, one of our other analysts, is enjoying some Jaleel Scott. And you jump in and steal from them.
I did.
How dare you? How dare you, sir?
I did. I totally stole because it was offered to me, and they said, which side of the ball do you want? And I said, I want to watch the New Mexico State wide receiver, and I just stole that joy. I stole that joy.
It is kind of the benefit we have, isn't it, over some of the other analysts that, I mean, obviously everyone's got a lot on their plate, and we do too. Sure. The fact that part of us is the draft, that we know which side we want to jump on.
Which was very nice of him to offer. He was like, yeah, whichever side you want. I said, I'll take New Mexico State's offense, please. Thank you. Yep. So so I got to see that. Like you said, when you jumped in to bail me out, you got to sneak some peek at Josh Allen. And then, you know, so that stuff is handy dandy because the more times, you know, we get looks at these guys, the better we know them and the better we can convey that information to our wonderful listeners, Josh. Moving on to the next player who's rising, and this is not a shock at all, and that's running back Rashad Penny from San Diego State. Poor guy's been stuck behind Donnell Pumphrey for years, but again, every time he got the ball, he flashed. Josh, what's he been doing this far now that he's got a chance to be the man?
Oh, ho-hum, 13 missed tackles forced versus Power 5 opponents so far. Obviously, he was instrumental in San Diego State taking down Stanford this past week, so a monumental win for the program. And I like that. I don't remember who was on the announcing crew, but they were talking about how big that is because they don't have football there anymore. They don't have the Chargers anymore. Yeah. As much as every time we refer to them, you keep calling them San Diego. They're in L.A., Jordan. Get it right. They're in L.A. now. So all San Diego has is their Aztecs now. And that's a team to be pretty proud of right now. And certainly Rashad Penny is part of it. We need to start talking about him a little bit more, I think, because I think in the eyes of the NFL, he's going to be seen as a more complete guy, a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. And I think he's got a lot to offer.
It was disgusting what he did against Arizona State. Again, we're mentioning that wonderful Todd Graham defense. But he had a 95-yard touchdown run and then a 99-yard kick return for a touchdown. It's like, that's just amazing to me. You know, like if you can make those type of big plays against Power 5 guys, you know, like, or just, you know, the fact that he, you know, just like these monster games against these Power 5 teams, it's really impressive. Again, and he's just shown that he can do it in all aspects. Really, really impressed with him.
It is worth pointing out, Jordan, that you look at our list of guys that are rising, and basically, if you played Arizona State or Wyoming so far, you're going to be moving up the board.
Josh, don't give up our secrets.
I know, right? We'll see if they have staying power, but I'm pretty confident Rashad Penny's going to be continue to move up the hypothetical board.
Yes. But yeah, those were his done with his Power 5. You know, he had his Power 5 audition and he just tanked both teams for over 180 yards. You know, so that's a much better Power 5, showing than he who should not be named Power 5 showing. And then moving on to another guy who's a Group of 5 guy who's really destroyed the Power 5. And that's Darius Phillips, the corner from Western Michigan. We spoke about him a couple times here on the show, Josh. He continues to have a strong year. He actually did give up a touchdown in coverage against Idaho.
Yeah.
But, I went back and I looked at it because I saw the stat, and I'm like, he gave a touchdown in coverage. I was like, wow, he's been shutting people down. He broke our grading system against Michigan State. And so I was like, how did he give up a touchdown against Idaho when he scorched, USC and Michigan State? It didn't make any sense. So, yeah, I went back and looked at the play, and he was basically sort of tailing a crosser out into the flat, and then the quarterback was rolling out. So it was basically either he stayed with his man and the quarterback ran into the end zone for a touchdown, or he went after the quarterback and forced the quarterback to at least throw, and that's what he did. So he gave a score, but it was really not his fault. But so far, Josh, 37.5 passer rating when targeted. You've seen him play. What are you thinking so far, Phillips?
Yeah, I think he's, to this point, been the most impressive back 7 player all around. And did you throw in obviously the special teams play? I'm not saying he's the best, the top guy, but I mean, what more do you want from the guy? I mean, he's been absolutely dominant. If he continues to play anywhere near the level to where he started this season, I mean, he's going to be talked about a lot come January, February, March, April.
January, February, March, April. The next player is...
That's a horrible song.
It's a terrible song. I don't know why you for some reason the way you said it, maybe had it stuck in my head like it's a melody or something. Now I'll just be singing it all day because I don't have any other music to get out of my head. Josh, anyways.
You should listen to music.
No, the next player is Lorenzo Carter, the edge from Georgia. Love that SEC production. He's got 13 total QB pressures already, Josh. Combined, that was just from weeks 2 and 3. That's really impressive. What are you seeing from Lorenzo Carter?
Yeah, he's also been really good on run defense so far this year. So, I mean, he just looks like a complete guy. And obviously when you've got a guy from Georgia, that's an area that just kind of breeds those edge guys down south there in Georgia and Florida. So you kind of come to expect that, and you see him putting up those kind of numbers already. And then you think about the terrible quarterback play he's going to see throughout the year in that conference. I think that's going to continue, and he's going to be one that we're going to be delving deeper as we get into January, February, March, and April.
Stop singing that song, Josh. You are a degenerate, Josh, and you like to gamble, and you like lines, and you like to know where, you can find edges, and so you like to look at matchups. So you have once again scoured the nation trying to find the best NFL draft prospect matchups, and I imagine it had to be far easier for you this week, Josh, because there was actually a few FBS against FBS games than compared to the past couple of weeks. But we're gonna go off the ones that you picked that sort of stood out to you. You filthy degenerate. The first one you liked was Washington wide receiver Dante Pettis against Colorado corner Isaiah Oliver. Man, this is a clash of the West Coast Titans, Josh.
This is it, right? This is the biggest one, although Oliver, your boy, I got to say, Jordan, he came back down to earth a little bit. That receiver in Northern Colorado whooped his ass this past week.
Got him vertically, yep.
2 touchdowns he gave up, 93 yards into his coverage. One of those was a 52-yarder. Pettis, on the other hand, ho-hum. Another return touchdown. What is that, 8 for his career?
And is it 3 straight weeks, isn't it?
Yeah.
Every game so far this season.
It's absurd. And I like your comment talking about the special team. You had looked at, was it Washington against Rutgers from week 1? You happen to look at that game, I think?
Yeah.
And just the violence you saw from Washington on special teams, that the way those units play. And when you hear that, usually that's just a mentality they have. It's not always just the playmakers they have. So Pettis certainly has that going for him. You got to think the unit as a whole is just going to be playing well, and that's helping him in this regard. But still, I mean, that's beyond impressive for Pettis. And he had a good week receiving as well this past week. 5 grabs on 7 targets, 92 yards, 3 touchdowns. One issue I do have with him so far, though, Jordan, not a guy that's been very elusive in the open field. He hasn't broken any tackles yet after the catch. So I want to see a little bit better with that. It's interesting how, as a receiver, he kind of seems like that possession type guy. But then you put him on special teams, and he's running in touchdowns every week. So
he saves
kind of
all
an
his
interesting guy.
Yeah, he saves all his missed tackles for his returns.
Apparently.
So it's clearly, Josh. Going back to your point, Isaiah Oliver, uncharacteristically rough performance last week. You said he got beat a couple times deep. It's disappointing. I cried. There are tear stains on my desk, but I'll get over it.
You did not ask me to sub in for you on that game, though, so I applaud you there.
I'll get over it. Corners got to have short memories.
I was not about that Northern Colorado life. Sorry to all our Northern Colorado listeners.
You got to have a short memory. So I think Oliver's going to bounce back. But again, this is going to be a really difficult matchup against Pettis. Incredible athleticism. You mentioned all the other things about him. But Josh, you mentioned special teams too. These guys will probably collide once or twice on special teams. Oliver's one of the better special teams, tacklers and coverage players in that conference. Pettis, you mentioned the best returner in the conference. So it'll be interesting to watch them match up on more than just the passing downs. The next matchup we want to stay with out west here.
You always want to stay out west, don't you?
No, that's just a nasty rumor. Nevada edge Malik Reed against Washington State tackles Andre Dillard and Cole Madison. So, we've mentioned before, in some of these podcasts that the Washington State offensive linemen use sort of massive splits, and that sort of helps them, identify stunts and things like that. Well, Malik Reed is a guy who can win one-on-one on his own. Doesn't need to have a stunt or any sort of game or twist for him to get an advantage on a lineman. He can just line in front of a guy and flat out beat him. So it's going to be an interesting one to watch, Josh, because, Dillard and Madison have been solid.
Yeah, they have been. Dillard's given up 1 pressure so far this season. No hits, no sacks. Cole Madison, he has given up a couple of sacks, which is uncharacteristic for him. He only gave up 3 all of last season. So Reed has kind of split his reps between both sides, so I think he's going to get a piece of both of them. So it'll be interesting to see, again, with those wide splits. When you get a good guy that's one-on-one, that can work to your disadvantage a little bit, too, if that quarterback's not able to get rid of the ball quickly. So I kind of have a feeling that Reed's going to get his this week, and we're going to see him get to Luke Falk a little bit.
Hopefully he doesn't hurt my Luke Falk.
Yes, please don't hurt my Luke Falk.
Please don't hurt my Luke
Don't hurt
Falk.
my Lukey boy. Yeah.
All right, the next matchup to talk about is Nebraska's edge, Freedom Akinmoladen against Rutgers' Tariq Cole. So again, we have a Big 12 matchup of traditional Big 12. Sorry, Big 10
Big
matchup.
12.
I was going to say Big 10 matchup of traditional Big 10 powerhouses like Nebraska and Rutgers, but then I just accidentally put them in the Big 12. Who knows what conference those guys are in? Like really. I was just thinking about that the other day. Anyways, like man, Nebraska.
That's kind of the whole point, right?
Nebraska should be in a conference with Oklahoma and Texas and Colorado, and they should be playing each other every year. Anyways, never mind.
Yeah, Big Ten hasn't really panned out for them, has it?
It doesn't seem to fit. It really doesn't. But
Penn State kind of fit right in, even though they haven't won a lot of championships until this past year.
And then Rutgers is just like, what do you do with your friend from Jersey? I don't know. They just kind of threw him in there. But anyways, that's just a weird conference. You're weird, Josh. So's your conference. What's your matchup?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite tackles in this draft. I love the athleticism, the physicality Tariq Cole shows. 88.6 run blocking grade. That's 9th in the country so far among all tackles, not just left, not just right, not just draft prospects. That's all tackles. So that's very impressive. Just 3 hurries, no hits or sacks against. Akinmoladen, much like the rest of his team, has been a big disappointment so far. Through 3 games, he only has 3 pressures total, all of them coming against, guess who, week 1, Arizona State.
It's the key to offensive success is play Arizona State.
The key to success is playing Arizona State. Yes, that's something I live by. It's like some people have play like a champion today written on their wall. I say the key to success is play Arizona State. That's on my wall.
You slap that every day before you go to work.
Yeah, exactly. I slap it going down the stairs to my office every morning. But yeah, so Freedom hasn't played particularly well so far, and I want to see more from him. And I really hope that we get to see these two face off, and that we see the best of both so far. Because I think both these guys are legit prospects. Certainly Cole's played up to that level so far, though he does have 4 penalties. That's been an issue he's got to clear up. But I think both these guys have something to offer at the next level. Got to see better play from Freedom Mullen-Dunn, though.
All right, the next matchup we're going to move on to back out west, thank God, is Stanford running back Bryce Love against UCLA linebacker Kenny Young. Now, Josh, there's something I have to tell you, and you might cry. This is some bad prospect news for you.
Uh-oh.
Bryce Love can't swim.
Can't swim?
Sorry, Josh. I'm sorry, buddy.
Well, it's not like he's playing against sharks, so that's okay.
All right,
this isn't surfing.
I might have to move on without Josh. He's probably a little bit upset, but yeah, Josh's whole family are like water babies. They have gills behind their ears, and Bryce Love, I found out, can't swim.
I am a swimming family. Yes.
So I'm sorry to disappoint you, Josh.
My vacation the previous summer was to the Olympic trials for swimming. So that's the level of commitment my family has to swimming, even more so than football. So that is upsetting.
Right. So you can like Bryce Love's game, but you guys cannot be best friends.
No.
So again, Bryce Love's had a great breakout years thus far. He hasn't played Arizona State yet, I don't think, but he did play Rice. He just very explosive player. You know, he could do it in the run game. He can do it as a returner. And now he's going to be facing Kenny Young, Josh, the latest in the version of athletic UCLA linebackers. I'm excited to see this one.
I gotta say, I'm not sure what you just said because you mentioned Rice, and all I can imagine is what would happen if Rice and Arizona State played each other.
Nice. When I hear Rice, I think of Year of the Quarterback because I think it's
No.
What?
No.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, 18 forced missed tackles on 43 rush attempts so far for Bryce Love.
Disgusting.
Yeah, but Kenny Young hasn't missed any so far this year, so I don't think he's been near as active as we've expected. But he's going to have to get a little more down and dirty against a very physical Stanford defense. So I'm interested to see how this one pans out, and if Bryce Love can continue his awesome start to the season. He's really been one of the stories early on this year. I think that'll nationally he'll probably lose a little steam just because they lost their last game. But that shouldn't take away from his individual play. He's been outstanding so far, and I kind of expect it to continue this week against UCLA and Kenny Young.
All right, the next matchup to focus on goes back to two teams that I can actually wrap my head around being in the Big Ten, and that's Purdue's center Kirk Barron against Michigan defensive interior lineman Maurice Hurst. This sounds like, a sort of clash of titans over there, Josh.
Yeah, Kirk Barron's been really solid throughout the 3 games so far this year. Purdue, they're one of the kind of shocking teams so far. They got one of the Brown boys coaching them now, and they've been lighting the ball up all over the place. And certainly center Kirk Barron's been a big part of that. No sacks, no hits through 3 games, just 3 hurries. Now he hasn't faced an animal like Maurice Hurst yet. I mean, Maurice Hurst is as good as they come. Obviously, he's our number 1 interior guy coming into the season. We still see him as a top 10 pick, kind of in that mold of that Gerald McCoy. That's a comp I'm going to stick with throughout this year. He has 7 hurries so far. He's had multiple in all 3 games. And keep in mind, they rotate quite a bit, and they've handled. Obviously, they didn't really blow out Air Force, but it's tough to get hurries against Air Force when they don't pass the ball. So he's still had 2 or 3 against them this past week, even though they literally passed the ball only 2 or 3 times. but his overall grade 89.6. That's number 2 nationally among interior defensive players. So awesome start for Hurst. Exactly what we expected out of him. And I think Mr. Barron and Purdue are going to have their hands full with him this week.
All right, the next matchup, we are going all the way out to the ACC, to the lovely Research Triangle. You have Duke's defensive interior lineman Mike Ramsey going heads up against North Carolina guard Khalil Rogers. Josh, what are you looking for out there in North Carolina?
Yeah, this is definitely the shout out to PFF_Jack, our good buddy, Duke grad, was a player at Duke. And Mike Ramsey, he's been absolutely awesome so far. He had a 93.1 overall grade last season. That landed him on both the ACC and National Team of the Week. He's posted 10 pressures so far, 7 total defensive stops. He's been an animal. Rogers, he's off to a good start as well, just 1 hurry through 3 games. And run blocking grade of 92.1, so he's been very well-rounded. And that run blocking grade was this past week, so he's coming in hot. These are 2 guys we haven't really talked about or really seen on film yet. So this is one of those interesting matchups that kind of develops through the beginning of the year, Jordan, where they're not guys you necessarily knew about, but they're kind of those late bloomers kind of breaking out. And I want to see how they stack up against each other. And if either of them can continue their hot starts and really show themselves throughout the season that they are legit prospects come January, February, March, and April.
Oh my God. You're lucky I can't reach through my computer and strangle you right now. Next matchup is Penn State running back Saquon Barkley, who blue chip prospect, going up against, these names aren't real, Iowa linebackers Bo Bauer and Josie Jewell. Josh, stop making up fake people.
They're Iowa linebackers. That's exactly what you would expect Iowa linebackers to be named.
Bo Bauer and Josie Jewell.
Bo and Josie, the Iowa linebackers.
Man, is that ridiculous. Anyways,
that's straight out of Hollywood, isn't it?
Saquon is going up against two linebackers that Josh made up. Yeah, and so what are we going to see at this one, Josh?
Hopefully, well, not for Iowa's sake, but hopefully we're going to see Saquon Barkley start heating up. We talked about all those missed tackles by Bryce Love and Stanford. Well, I don't know. Maybe Barkley's been doing the swimming out of the 2 because he only has 6 so far on 38 carries that he's been able to force. So not the elusive play that we've come to expect from him so far. Now, Jewell and Bauer, I call him Bauer, 22 total stops in 3 games so far, but they do have 8 missed tackles combined, 6 of them by Jewell, and that was something that plagued him last year. I have a feeling it's going to be a rough go for them as far as that goes. It is worth noting that, you led off this segment talking about, hey, we've got some conference matchups and some like opponents that have seen each other before. When these 2 teams faced off last year, this duo of linebackers, I don't think they played particularly well all around, but they did only miss 1 tackle. It is worth noting in that Bo Bauer had his lowest graded run game of the season last year in this game, and it was because he really struggled getting off blockers. So that's something to watch out for there, and their matchup particularly against Barkley as well. I think Barkley's going to get on track, and I think he's going to cause problems for that Iowa defense.
Yeah, that's just he's got to be the toughest player to tackle in the country. So I imagine we're going to see some Iowa defenders, missing him and eating grass instead. The next matchup you have here, Josh, a good old nasty SEC edge battle here. We got Kentucky edge Josh Allen going up against Florida.
Wait, I thought we weren't going to say his name anymore.
This is not the same Allen. Josh Allen.
Oh, a different Allen?
Yeah. Oh. Same terrible first name, but yeah.
Are you grading this game this week? Am I have to sub in on this one too? I don't want to watch Florida.
I don't know. I haven't looked at the schedule. I don't know if the schedule. I don't know if it's up. Kentucky edge Josh Allen, not that Josh Allen, versus Florida left tackle Martez Ivy. What are we going to see from the other Josh Allen?
Yeah, this is the droid you're looking for in terms of Josh Allen droids. He's been excellent so far. Amassed 13 pressures, at least 4 in all 3 games. He's had 2 sacks and 8 hits, so he's getting home too, which is awesome. 8 total defensive stops so far, so he has been a monster. And Martez Ivy, it's been kind of on the other end of the spectrum for him. Obviously, 2 very tough matchups to start the year. Maybe the toughest 2 games to start the season of anyone in the country, having to have Michigan and then Tennessee this past week. And obviously, they got the lucky Hail Mary at the end to win that game. But tough matchup for the prospect. 36.6 run blocking grade so far this season, and he's given up 6 total pressures, including a sack. It's tough not to imagine that might be continuing this week against the Wyoming quarterback or Kentucky edge prospect. They're so similar. They remind me of each other.
The other Josh Allen would probably be a decent edge rusher. Like he's got the length and the athleticism.
Yeah. The reckless abandon you want too.
Yeah. Let's just make him an edge rusher. Anyways, so that'll wrap it up. You know, we have now taken you guys through how all the rookies are doing this past week. We've now taken you through the year of the quarterback. We have now taken you through the draft board risers, and now Josh again has scoured the country looking for the top draft matchups. So you guys are all good to go for the week. Please go to profootballfocus.com and sign up for Edge or Elite if you haven't yet, so you get access to all of our draft information on there in our draft guide. Please follow me on Twitter at PFF_Jordan. Follow Josh on Twitter if you want at PFF_Josh. And please go to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review, please. We really, really like those. Josh, anything you got to say on the way out, buddy?
Oh, man. Let's watch some football this week, eh?
Woo! All right. We will talk to you guys next week.